Welcome everyone today. My name is Martin Weldon. I'm the Director of Coaching and Business Development for the Menkiti Group Enterprise and Empower Neighborhoods Platform. Empower Neighborhoods Platform is one of the business units of the Menkiti Group Enterprise. It is now becoming forward-facing this year. We've created an initiative to begin introducing our Empower Neighborhoods Platform in a slow, methodical, but purposeful process, even though it's been in existence since 2019. A little background on myself. I actually started in real estate in 2006 when Keller Williams Capital Properties Capitol Hill first launched in 2006. And I joined Bo and Kimber Menkiti and helped build out the MGA residential sales team in 2007. So from there, my background and experience, I'm responsible for well over 1,000 buyer transactions, both directly and indirectly over the years of supervising full-fledged buyer division for one of Gary Keller's top 100 teams for numerous years. And I'm a former Keller Williams MAPS coach. And in 2018-19, Empower Neighborhoods was a concept and creation that Bo Menkiti and I came up with. And that's what we've been working on for the last two and a half years. And it's now coming forward facing this year, which is a high level national real estate thought leadership platform around 4 pillars of real estate sales, development, wealth building, and leadership, based off of our 2 models of wealth building and neighborhood transformation here at the Menkiti Group. I say all that to say, I've mentored and coached hundreds of agents around the country, locally in our market centers, and I love to give back. Shift Tactic 9 is one of my most passionate courses I love to teach. And I've been teaching this ever since Shift came out. So with that said, I'm glad we got a little bit of pre-show where some folks want to know how to help facilitate decisions, how to become an expert and utilize their skills in a changing market. Also, how to utilize certain unique skills or skill sets that we may have, and how can that be beneficial with working with our clients in this moving forward. So let me go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint and we can begin here. All right, 1 second. Let's start from the beginning. 1 second. So you guys got a little bit of pre-show there. So the course states create urgency to buy. So it really depends on what you're reading. The actual book came out in 2008, Shift, and the actual course material was created in 2016. So with that, there are going to be slight variations from if you read the original book and the course material. And this course material is based off of like kind of 2016. And at certain points, it's interesting because I was reviewing the deck and I almost was prompted to change it a little bit, but it's still relevant. You'll see certain things where it says inventory is high or inventory may be normal or interest rates are low and stable, which guess what? We all know is not the case. So you can have varieties of shifts no matter what. So I kept it the same way because it really comes to the perspective of creating urgency. And these are the topics we're going to be covering. Being the expert, how to create a best buy list, doing your homework and finding it for them. And really the most important, which I'm most passionate, reason why I enjoy this course and teaching it, is facilitating a decision. And that kind of goes back to what the very first person said in the pre-show, which is they're meeting people and how do you handle certain expectations and how do you set up to make sure you're hearing and understanding what your client's needs are. I want to say creating buyer urgency. With anything, a lot of times people read bylines and think that, oh, this is just for buyer's agents. Hence the reason why we may have somewhat of a low turnout, because everyone is now told to work with what? Sellers. Yet this material is transferable if you're working with a seller or a buyer, even though the title states creating buyer urgency. So if you really think about it, the perspective of creating urgency is just the same right now when we're with the low inventory and we're trying to engage sellers to help them understand that this still may be the right time to sell, just like the material may say for the buyer, the right time to buy. So it's really understanding the perspective on creating that urgency. And I just want to say for those who are here, you can definitely share with others that even though it says buyer urgency, if you work with sellers, the same processes and concepts and tactics work for both sellers and buyers. So this is where we're going to get interactive. While it states here, here are the challenges, and these are the perceptions. The media creates misconceptions about possibly buying a home, or individuals fear paying too much. Now, this is a great thing. Now, some folks might actually be fearing that because depending on where you are in the country, and I coach agents around the country right now, about 30 plus agents and teams, and we're seeing it in different parts of our country. So even though you may not be experiencing in your own local market certain things, it is happening and it is shifting. And it's great that you guys are actually here today so you can actually get a little bit of insight. So if it's still not here, you have a little bit of insight of what to do when it may come about in the future. And it says buyer doesn't have a sense of urgency. Oh, guess what? We can right now in our current market today, we could say the same for what? The seller. The seller may not have a sense of urgency. And can anyone tell me why the seller may not have a sense of urgency? Since we have a small group, I would love for you guys to start engaging. I mean, this is the time to really, the more you engage, the more you'll get out of it, instead of sitting and thinking of it as a classroom lecture in high school or college. Can anyone tell me why I said the seller may not have a sense of urgency?
I think the sellers know that they have the advantage on this market and they can just wait around for the right price to come
Thank
and
you.
have a house on a market for as long as it takes.
Okay, so thank you. And again, that can be a challenge. And that is her perspective. Anyone else? Someone just came on. I don't see their name there, so I'm sorry, I can't call you, ma'am. I thought you were going to go ahead.
So I have seen sellers who are scared that if they sell, they're not going to be able to buy. So they're like, let me hold off.
Thank you. So let's understand that. And I'm glad you guys, for both of those are kind of the two challenges that we have right now in our market. These are the things that we hear and experience. Now, think about the very first bullet. The media creates misconception about buying or selling a home today. Can anyone share with me where or how that may be true, or what you may have read or seen?
Hi, yeah. So watching especially channels like CNN, there's like every morning they're talking about the market and the interest rates, not going down. Prices are like at historic highs, interest rate are at historic highs. And so as a viewer, especially like if you are looking to buy, just that misconception that they're putting out there, it's like it's a scare tactic, and it's making a lot of buyers second guess their decision to make a move right now versus waiting.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And here it is. You just teed it up. So everyone think about what she just stated and what you guys may have heard or read. And look at that last bullet. Many agents think it may not be a good time to buy, or may not be a good time to sell. Really what that statement is saying is, what are we saying ourselves as professionals about our current market? Anyone have any thoughts? What are you saying?
Well, while some of what you hear can be true, right? As an agent, one of the things that I always try to instill in my clients is this saying that I constantly hear, and I'm sure it's probably common amongst a lot of other agents, is that don't wait to buy real estate and wait. So there's never really a wrong time to buy. Interest rates will eventually come down. That's why we have this beautiful thing called refinancing, so understanding that while the home values may continue to increase, right, because they may not necessarily come down, the interest rates will. And so it's still always a good time if you come across that house that you really like to make that move, because you may not be stuck with that price point forever.
Great, thank you. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have the course material. You guys can go download this if you don't currently already have it, but you should definitely follow along. And it has the course pages to correspond to kind of where we are on these PowerPoints. If you guys have been in this series all the way through, these are just highlights or cliff notes of the actual course material. And there's tons of nuggets and values there. So I just wanted to note that. I want to go back. So you actually gave an objection handler to the challenge. Thank you very much for what you just gave. But I want to go back to, maybe someone else can say it, speak to why are many agents may think it may not be a good time to buy or sell depending on the market. Meaning, what are we saying about our own market? Or even, here it is, are we even aware of what we say? We know what we say to the client because we're on stage, right? So if we have the consult, or if we're calling someone seeking an appointment, we know what we're going to say. But guess what? I learned this years ago when I used to be in the restaurant business, because restaurants, theater. No matter where you are in the restaurant, you're always on stage. So someone's always watching. You as a real estate professional, you are always on stage. So here's something to think about. Back to this challenge right here, or perception. What are we saying at the cookout like we just had this past weekend? Or at family graduation parties? Or just in casual settings, at the bar, in public? What are we saying ourselves when we're not apparently on stage or in front of a client? How are we talking about the market? And it's important to note that, because guess what? A lot of things that are noted that as she referenced, that comes about from the media or from news blogs, or when people report about certain things, it's actually someone just expounding upon statements that we as realtors have already stated. So we actually do our own demise. And then we wonder why we can't have business. Now, I'm speaking of it on a large macro level. I'm not saying it individually to yourself, for you all, but think about that. And this is a really important chapter in this whole shift, because this is all about nuance. It's all about positioning. This whole chapter, while it has a few tactical things you can do, is not like a lot of the rest. This is all about relationships and how you communicate. Hopefully I've gotten some of you guys to think about it. So I apologize, ma'am. Can you share your name? Because your name doesn't come up at the bottom, but I want to at least acknowledge your statement. When you were talking about how you handle the question with other clients, can you share your name?
Oh, sorry, Nisha.
Nisha. So if you guys heard Nisha maybe 4 or 5 minutes ago, when she gave her response, she actually spoke the truth. It sums up, people are buying and selling homes in no matter what market. No one can truly time the market. That's what she stated. That's the truth. Yet, think about this too, when you read news blogs and articles, when they cite other agents, pay attention to, because in order for them to say certain things in the media, they have to fact check it, right? Inman on Memorial Day stated an article about the market shifting. We knew the market has shifted since before this course creation series was set up. We actually have the intel. So if anything, if you guys do anything out of this today, trust your instincts, kind of vet any theories or assumptions you may have that may be happening with true professionals that have been in the business, and ask them those poignant questions of what you're thinking, and not waiting for a news article or a pundit to say or speak about our market. Because here it is. This is what I will say too. We have not heard anyone say, let's start doing price reductions, but that's coming. The folks I've coached, we have a short window, and we'll get into it really right next about the Taylor 2 markets. And right now, the sellers are the last to know. Yet, we've been telling everyone for the last year to go after sellers. And because the buyers can't compete. True. But you can still go find the buyers, because people are always buying and selling homes. In order for you to go get a seller, that means you go get a seller, but now you have to find the buyer. So that means there are always buyers no matter what market, what city you're in. So while you currently have the buyers who may not compete because interest rates went up and a lot of people lost 40 to 60% of their pipeline, and then they're scrambling to try to figure out what to do, understand that is where they are. Until some situations change, the remaining 40% that stayed in, you probably only have about 7% that can really, really take action now. So understand that. So it's a matter of how do you keep, and someone asks, motivate and keep your clients still engaged until it may be that right time. Because when did we lose our clientele? For most of you guys, you lost a drop in your buyer pipeline 2 months ago. Yet, I know for a fact, some of my coaching clients, they all did a good amount of buyer closings this past month, or put a good number under contract this month, because the market has already shifted, yet the media really hasn't said it. So this is where we have the intel, and we can't get in trouble for insider trading if we know our market. So that lends to being an expert in the market in our economy. That means read and understand what's being stated. And as you heard Nisha mention, how do you counter some of that? Listen to what the buyers are stating. And this is important, and it's capitalized. Listen. If most of you guys all work with buyers, great. I've done one thing well and one thing, and that's work with thousands of buyers or manage buyer teams. I've done well over 2,000 buyer transactions to date. Now, I know how to create and get sellers. I've gone on scores and scores of listing presentations. Most of my buyers, I'm in there, they've bought and sold again. So I'm there. And here it is. Most of the folks who say they want to work with sellers or they want to get rid of their buyers, and I'm speaking right now to the agents that we kind of like follow, because they say go work with buyers because they're tired of working. I mean, go work with sellers because they're tired of working with buyers. Any good listing agent was a great buyer's agent first. If you ask them and ask them these questions, how did they get started? And just don't take that first answer as the answer, but go deeper. And when you go deeper, it's listen. That is the key. The key is listening when we're in our consultations. Listen to what's being said and what's not being said, and being willing to stay on a certain question. I actually did a tactic. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but Nisha spoke up. I asked a question, I sat silent. And I let that silent do the heavy lifting. That's actually a form of negotiating tactics, because usually the first person who speaks, the other person has the advantage. So you're going to get a little bit of tactics mirrored and peppered in, but paying attention to pricing and condition. This is where, for the person who stated they're doing transactions, but they want to become a full-time agent, you probably have an unfair advantage if you're really in tune and aware of what's coming across your desk by being a transaction coordinator. You actually see and pay attention. What did it contract for? What are the property conditions when the home inspection reports come back? Now, granted, I know a lot of you guys probably have never seen a home inspection in the last 18 to 20 months, yet they're coming back. And here it is. If you guys are a good number of you guys are buyer agents or work buyer heavy, you guys need to really pay attention to these home inspection reports. I have a question, and I would love to hear from a few of you all. Who are doing even informational inspections, or who's done inspections and you just stand in one spot, or you sit in the car and let the inspector walk your client around because you've heard an agent or a mega agent or someone of influence say, that's the time for the inspector and my client to bond and know each other. Yes, that's true. And yes, as an agent, you should not interject. Yet, this is also where you learn. Time on task. You should be right there with your client at the home inspection, especially if you're brand new. Or again, if you guys have been in the business for a while, but really haven't done inspections, property pricing and conditions are key. Even on those walk and talk inspections, you will learn if you're being a student while you're there and not answering emails or responding to other things or sitting in a corner. Granted, I've been in this business 16 years and I know what a lot of agents do. And I know a lot of agents are taught that that's what they should do. Yet, in order for you to be an expert and understand pricing and condition and how to challenge that seller who wants to get a certain price, when you see the condition, just the visible condition. If you have not done a good number of home inspections to see the patterns and the conditioning and how much certain things cost to repair, then you will not be able to challenge that seller. And that's why you will start to see price reductions or things just sit out here in the market for a long period of time. And because you're an expert and you're paying attention to these things, and by listening, you're able to match needs and wants, you're going to lessen the client's fear to either buy or sell, because guess what? You've now bonded with your client. So this is part of Career Growth Initiative. I'm not sure if you guys are fully aware, but this is really important. This is actually, everyone wants to get to GCI. I'm going to go to this one first because this is what you guys see. Everyone wants to get here to closings and profit. Yet there's a wall of value here, which is kind of back here, your agent lore, your agent trends, you're being the local expert, understanding certain, utilizing tools and resources that you actually have to understand what your unique value proposition is for your clients. But 1 and 2 are your lead measures. 3 and 4 are lag measures. Most people focus on the end. Most people focus on how many deals they want to do at the end of the year and how much profit or GCI they want to make. Yet, you can't control this. Let's be clear. You can't control if an offer is going to be accepted. You can help influence it. And for the person who does transaction to close, you've seen deals fall out. But these are all lag indicators. So, but we put a lot of emphasis here when actually listing appointments and listings taken, that's buyer and listing appointments, because depending on where you are in the country, they call buyer appointments listing appointments as well. So let's not get hung up on semantics. Yet 1 and 2 are what you can control, and 1 and 2 are what you have and what you can learn through your time on task. Any questions before I go forward? Because this is something that's really important, yet a lot of people only focus here. It's harder to focus here because it's the day-to-day, and it's like working out and training and you want to lose weight and you don't see it until someone, that family friend, when you go to the cookout and they say, oh, wow, you've lost weight, you look well, but you still haven't seen it. But you've put the time time on task for the exercise, the discipline and the habit of eating right, yet you don't see the change. That's the same way here. Any questions about what I'm saying? Because this is important. Anyone? Okay, you guys are a quiet group. Let me ask this question, and I'm gonna come off screen share. I would like to know, put it in the chat if you're not in a position to speak, maybe you have a lot of noise. I wanna know, what is your time in the business? How long have you been in business? No excuses. Like if you're dual career, state I'm dual career and I've been full-time for the last 2, or I'm full-time for 1 year or 18 years. I want to know what my audience is, because sometimes I can overspeak to my audience. So I want to match the audience. Think about that. What did I just say? I'm taking an assessment of you to now tailor my consultation to you, even though I have a full presentation and I can work off of that, just like you have a full listing presentation and a full buyer's presentation. Yet if you don't know your audience, you will sit there, state everything verbatim from that listing presentation or that buyer presentation that you've rehearsed, and you've gotten head nods and they walk away and you don't hear from them. And then you get upset because it comes back to listening and understanding your audience. So thank you. I see 13 years to 1 year. I know there are more people on here. Can I get a few more? Because I only see 2 chats so far. I have 13 years, 1 year. Brian, how long you been in business?
Full-time, 1.5 years.
Thank you. Carl, how long? Unless you actually answered it, Carl. I haven't gone back in the chat. So Lindsay said, so Megan, so since December, Lindsay said 13 years full-time. Megan said full-time less than a year. Carl said December. Brian said a year. Nisha and Sharita, I'm gonna mess up your name. Miss Williams, how long? Because this is important.
Since February.
Since February for you. Nisha, how long? All right. When she comes back, maybe she stepped away. Well, this is important. Think about this. Some of you guys have probably never seen a home inspection report. And I'm up here speaking about, did you need to be standing next to a home inspector? You see where I'm going with this? Some of you guys probably have never negotiated an offer with a client. So, because everything is what? It has been a seller's market for several years. And with our very low inventory, it's either highest and best and remove contingencies. That's what you guys have been taught. Here it is, though. The reason why you're here today and why you're taking this shift course is that will not be the future. Everything is cyclical. What was before will come back again. I believe her name was Lindsay Patton, who's been in for 13 years. If you're in a position, can you help acknowledge what I'm saying? Because I'll be honest, I haven't been in our market center, so I don't know what's being said in some of our trainings like I used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak to it. I'm actually a growth director now for Keller Williams. So I get on these courses. I've been on quite a few of them just to hear the different tactics taught by different people. But absolutely, I think it's incredibly important to be at a home inspection. I personally was never taught not to be there. But certainly in the business nowadays, like you said, we waive all contingencies to win offers. But anytime you can come from a place where you're learning, absolutely, and being in the business less than a year, 100%, they should be at any home inspection. The walk and talks, go on the walk and talk. Like you said, don't interject, but be there and be present and be learning at all times, because they are coming back and we're going to see more and more. And to really be able to negotiate and know what you're talking about intelligently, you're going to need to know about that home, and you're going to need to know the condition of the home, just like you hit on. So absolutely, it's important, 100%.
Thank you very much. And
Yep.
and thank you, Lindsay. And I want you all to all understand, not just the home inspections, but for some of you guys, back to the PowerPoint, right? Back to the PowerPoint. These are the things you can control. In order for you to get the listing appointment or get a lot of you guys get the listing appointments because they're either referred to you by a friend, someone's acknowledged you, or they're willing just to hear you, right? Yet, right here, from appointment to agreement, this is why we should be tracking this information and understand our conversion metrics, because the whole point of the 4 conversations, and if you have not gone through this, you can go through this right on KW Connect. The 4 conversations are very critical because it really comes down to either 1 or 2 problems that every agent has. Either they don't have enough activity or it's a skill issue. So that means if you look at this and you follow this all the way through, if you have a good number of listing appointments and you secure a good number of your, a large percentage of those appointments, then you have the activity and you have the skill to secure the agreement. Yet you have a lot of folks with agreement, and granted, this is just a blip this last 7 to 8 months with very hyper local, hyper Uber sellers market where you have buyers and they're starting to get buyer fatigue. If you've been in this business long enough, this is just like a day in my life. It's not like an eternity for some of you guys right now. Yet, and like I said, it's turning. So while you have these buyers and you're not able to get them to close, now it's not an activity issue. It might be a skill issue if you can't get them to close. And that's why you have the wall of value, your agent lures, your agent trends. Be the local, the one thing that Lindsay said, be the local expert. That is something each and every one of you all can control as new agents. Because if you're new and you don't have business, guess what? Ask an agent to shadow them. A lot of agents will allow you to shadow them. What we say is, can you teach me? Can you mentor me? Now that's putting a lot of pressure on a lot of agents. But if you say, hey, I would love to sit in and be a fly on the wall on some of your consultations. If you don't know which agents to do that with or to be on showings with, ask your MCA or team leaders, okay? The same on showing properties. Some agents show, it's amazing how agents show properties, but these are all factors, a part of your wall of value. And if you're brand new, we may be seeing or observing usually the ones that are most vocal, but let me give you a hint. Usually the ones who do a lot aren't speaking, aren't standing up all the time in these market centers, spouting out from a soapbox. They're operators. So understand that. They're the ones that you should likely be shadowing or asking to observe. I used to get it all the time when I was in the business. I used to have tons of agents shadow and go on appointments with me. And it got to a point where I literally was running almost like a little mini training series at a time where I would have groups of agents, but you got to make sure your clients are comfortable with it. You understand? So if you think about restaurants where they have training stores, I literally was our market center training agent for years. But this is how you guys gain skill. This is that time on task over time will trump time in the business. Because those who just said they were in the business relatively new, and you may have a hang up or fear or apprehension of going after certain things. If you go to a good number of listing appointments and buyer appointments and inspections and property previews, which is where we're going to next, you are becoming the expert. It doesn't take a long time. It's your time on task over time. You can become a market expert in like 2 to 3 months if you focus on it. And you don't have to focus on the whole large area. Focus on the area where you concentrate your business or where you intend to do your business. And then it becomes sequential. After you focus on one area for 1 month, go choose another community. Dive deep into it. Understand, you guys have the greatest thing now, Wikipedia and Google. You can get stuff that we didn't have years ago on with market trends and market updates and market profiles through Kelly. You guys can get all that through Kelly, through HomeSnap, all these resources. Those are your wall of value. And here it is. I can say it because 90% of the agents after I say it will never go and use it. I actually asked the agent who's been in our market center for 2 years something about getting a neighborhood report to understand the neighborhood and the market statistics. And I said they can do it through Kelly. And they asked me what was Kelly. I'm not going to embarrass anyone here today, but if you don't know what Kelly is, go into KW Connect and Google it. Go ask your market center, because I put them back to their market center. I was embarrassed because it was my own local market center. It's not a bad thing. We have so much information that we only think of in the moment. There's tons of content under KW Connect that you guys have all these resources. Is now just focusing in where you want to go. That all of these are a part of your wall to value. And everything that you guys want to accomplish. Like, we're not going to cover this. Obviously, you guys have probably seen this before. Are you an explorer? I would hope everyone here is a date who wants to be explored. That's why I'm asking you guys to ask questions, put things in the chat. There is no such thing as a dumb question. If you're here because you were told to be here by a PC coach or someone, if you're on a team, then you're really a prisoner. If you're trying to get time to fill your time, and you want to make sure that you get noted in your market center because you've been to so many trainings. I was our market center's first PC coach. I helped create our PC programs for all of KWCP. So I'm really engaged. I know these different reports and how they look at things. Be the expert is what I'm talking about. This is your top 20%. Lead gen, and even more important is lead follow-up. Most agents stop following after 3 times because they don't want to be a burden. They think they're pestering someone, or they set them up on quote unquote smart plan or auto drip. Guess what? This is a contact sport. Now, granted, you have a lot of resources. You don't have to do the door to door, but yet you should still follow up. You should always be closing. And there's actually a chart. I'm not sure. I think it's in Shift Tactic 4 on how to upshift your lead gen, where they show that graph chart where it's the top of the funnel and then all the things you should be doing. And if there's a no, then you go back to cultivate. It's the 4 C's of lead gen. That's the graph, 4 C's of lead gen, and Shift Tactic 4 under upshifting your lead gen. You should always be closing to the next appointment or the next time to communicate. That's another reason why agents don't follow up, because they end their communication either written or orally without a close. So they assume that if they're not closing for appointment, they're just going to ask softball questions. Yet, if you ask permission or say, hey, do you mind if I follow up next week or in 2 weeks just to see where you are? You've now gotten permission when they say yes. So don't feel bad. State it. Note it in your calendar and follow up in the week or 2 weeks when you say it. If anything, I don't know, for folks who've been on here a year or two, and there are folks that you've been following up with, and then all of a sudden they come back after a year and they say, hey, thanks for sticking with me. Has that happened to any of you all? This is where we're getting interactive. Thank you, Brian. So can you share with the group, because some folks are relatively new. What is the first thing that person says when they come back? What are they saying when they come back?
Well, it hasn't been a full circle comeback. I started in December 2020 and I did a few open houses off break. And I had put somebody on a drip and neglected to keep following up with her because she was such a niche client. She was looking for something specific and I really couldn't help her. But she reached out on her own and said, I appreciate you not being so overbearing. She sent me an email. She said, I appreciate you, sending out these listings, staying on top of my thing without being overbearing. So she was appreciative to my inactivity in a certain kind of way. Because I put her on automatic, but instead, so she's in a different position now, and she's actually invited me to become, a type of consultant with her friends who are trying to do some different things than we first started the relationship as.
There you go. So again, like I said, this is the one course that it's all about nuance. It's really all about relationships and how you can become, like we say, the local expert. You've heard some people say how you can become the concierge, that go-to person for what they may need.
Right.
And yeah, so your drips and certain things that you automate, I'm sure someone's on here has also had folks where they've actually did follow up and check in periodically with a voicemail or an email of something a little more than, or a call, a little more than just the automatic drips. And they probably have said, thank you for staying in touch with me. If you haven't, and when it gets, what I will say is trust that process. These are the things that you can control. These are the things you can do. And what will likely happen is people will say, hey, you know, I've been so busy. I really appreciate you staying on top of this and being accountable to me. I had a lot to do. I'm now ready. Usually that's the response. But guess what? Because we don't follow up, we never even get to that point. Because what we get in our own mind and think we're being a nuisance, or we don't have anything to contribute. I will give you a hint for everyone here. Here's something tactical you can do on follow-up. Memorial Weekend was a great one. You can do it again because we have 4th of July coming up. Really, in the middle of this month, just reach out to all those folks that you have a database for and say, I'm smelling barbecue. What's on the grill? What should I bring? You will get engagement. You could text that. That is still a touch. Like you said, those automatic drips, that person still felt you were still top of mind. Yet, how do we move our clients? And we're afraid to communicate with them, but utilize the summertime. Check in, see what they're doing, see if they're beautifying their neighborhoods or buying flowers. Maybe they need, I need this, I need a mosquito company because I got rid of Terminex. So an example like that, I actually have to research some good mosquito companies. Yet as a real estate agent, I can do that. And then what I can do is I can put that on my vendor list and send that out. So think about some of the things that you may need yourself or what a single client may need. Yet, how can you now have a multi-pronged approach for what you're doing for one client that can then become collateral or content or material for potential future clients, or how do you engage clients? These are things that we have to do. We have to become more of that concierge because we have tons of disruptors in our business. But again, so that's follow-up and appointments with prospects and negotiating contracts. Market research is highlighted here because this is what we're talking about. The tale of two markets. And the tale of two markets pretty much start like on page 13, 14, 16. And it's either you're in the market or you're out of the market. And this is true. Properties that are in the market, the conditions are great and the price is below. So if you talk with any good listing agent, part of their strategy is usually to price a home in a market 5 to 10% below the medium and let the draw back up. And you will hear some people wonder, like, why do they price that so undervalued? They knew what that price was. That's a ploy and a tactic because they know there will be so much of a frenzy. They will let the market correct itself because they know the condition and they know their comps in their community. So that's another thing too for newer agents. If you don't have a lot of clients, study your market, pick and choose properties and run CMAs on now. Partner up with other people and begin to model these things now. It's just like scripts. We do tons of script practice, but things like this, we don't practice a lot. We do real play and sending a CMA to someone, or we get angst and ask for help at the last minute. And usually the most inopportune time for someone else. And then we get upset because we then say, oh, no one can help us. I've heard it all. I called and reached out to my broker or the PC coach, and they couldn't help me, or the person who was my mentor, they couldn't help me. No, everyone's busy, just like you are. Yet if you put and get discipline, if you have a lot of time, if you're not doing lead gen and follow-up, if you're not going on appointments with prospects, and if you're not doing negotiating contracts right now, this is where your day should be filled, doing market research. And that's just not looking at what your local boards may say, which is high and low. There are great courses being taught about absorption rates right now. What's an absorption rate? I'm not going to embarrass you guys. What's the velocity? I'm not going to embarrass you. Those are terms that you guys had to learn to pass your real estate exam and probably never have heard since then. Yet, by knowing these things and then putting them into practice in your normal conversations with your clients, you are now the expert in their eyes. Even though you may not have done a deal, yet you're the expert in their eyes because you have had time. So what the tale of a seller's market, here it is. This is the graph, meaning the conditions are poor and the house is priced way high. And so it's outside the market. This is what I want each one of you all to do if you don't pay attention to your market. Days on markets have slowly been creeping up. Do not just rely on what your market center may say or what the local board may say for a whole zip code or a whole city or county. You do CMAs in a very micro community area where your business is, and then can see if the days on market have gone up or less. Usually they will be different from what the larger macro CMA will be. So that's where you, again, have to be that local expert. NRA ran a commercial years ago, back during the buyer's market. It said, choose a local real estate because real estate is local. It is so true. Even in the city, a CMA can be different by a couple blocks. If you don't believe me, ask any of your top mega agents in your markets that have listings, and you ask them how they run their CMAs. They may take a finite location and go back more than 6 months. They may go back 2 years to understand the trends at that time 2 years ago in where you are today. Where most people do a CMA, which is just a 6-month look back, because that's what an appraisal will do. Yet you wonder why the listing agent's CMA and pricing is different from what you may come up with. And then hence you're negotiating and advising your client, yet you may lose, but you see what? The house is still being sold. That just means that agent, that buyer's agent, was in tune to the market and understood that micro market and probably looked back more than 6 months. They probably went back 2 to 3 years, same time period. And they still in a finite location. It's hard to do CMAs, and how you know you really get good at CMAs is you choose locations that do not have a lot of velocity, or meaning a lot of sales. And that's where a lot of agents will mess up, because they'll say they don't have a lot of comps, yet the listing agent's comped it somewhere, and then you give a price and you lose and you're baffled. Because here it is. In a seller's market, who's the last to know? It's the buyer. The buyer is the last to know, because they're going off of what? Third-party data, things that someone else has told them of when they bought. Back to when Anisha mentioned about CNN. And to sum up the tale of the two markets, in a buyer's market, you recognize it's going to be less, more properties out of the market because the seller is the last to know. And you have less people buying. And in the essence of a shift is we are in a short period window right now, about 3 to 4 months, maybe where you are, depending on when the news media is, because it takes them 4 months to confirm things. So if you're the expert, you should be preparing your clients. And you guys have heard Gary Keller say, in a shift, you want to be one step ahead of the 4 stages of the shift. And that's what I'm speaking about now. Right now, the market is becoming normal. It was the seller's market, but when it starts to normalize in certain locations, even though everyone still may say it's a seller's market, it's still less time on inventory and interest rates are high and you have less people buying. You go look at your micro areas where you do work and you may see a huge disparity and gap. That is because the markets will correct and shift. And who is last to know? That seller who has been sitting on the fences. And then they say, hey, I want to sell now. And they're counting on where the market was 2 months ago. It's totally different today. Any questions? This is where I was saying, it says mortgage rates are low and stable. Now, mortgage rates are high. Yet people still buy, because guess what? They're not as high as where they used to be. Yet we act like we've missed opportunities. If you're helping someone buy their home, and I want to come off screen here for this, and I would love to have a conversation about this. If you are helping a buyer and you're working with a buyer, and they're not a buyer for an investment property, but a buyer for their primary domicile. And this was what someone had asked the earlier question. And how do you get a buyer off of the fence? I can't say it enough. In this section, facilitate the decision is the most important, in my opinion, section out of the entire shift book. And you need to start facilitating a decision at the moment you meet with your client, not at the point of negotiating an offer. If you start thinking about and being aware to facilitate a decision when you start to set up the appointment and when you're in the appointment, it will be like the fog is lifted and you actually are listening to your clients and understanding the nuances. Yes, they say we don't want to buy because the price is too high. But if this is their primary domicile, gone are the days, and probably that's what some people recently have thought they could do, is buy a year and take advantage of, in 2 years, capital gains incentive and get a 10 to 20% appreciation bump and make a quick windfall and go buy somewhere else. So you got to understand your client strategy for purchasing, even their primary home. And when you ask them how long do they plan to live there, still go deeper and ask more, because they'll say, I'm not quite sure, maybe a couple of years, may want to move back home, or when we have kids. Ask them again. So again, I'm asking you, how long do you envision living in your home? How many years? Yeah, you're now challenging your client, but you're also helping them critically think about what they're about to do. This is why, again, like I said, most people want to shy away from buyers. I applaud you all for being here, is because they say buyers are liars. Buyers don't know what to do. They don't know what they want. They're fickle. They're this, they're the other. Yet they say, go get a seller because your life will be easier. Yeah, you go get a listing. For those of us who've been in this business, when it was a buyer's market for years and those listings sat and sat and sat and sat. And now you're having to negotiate it from the start. That's where you negotiate. When you work with a listing, you negotiate from the start with the seller first, then with the agent, the co-op agent, and then back again with your seller. Yet with a buyer, if you understand them, you can put them on the right track and run it like a true consultative business. But you first got to understand what their needs are. You got to be an expert in your inventory. You got to know housing types. You can't just walk in the house the same day they do. So yes, this is a good call to action to take someone to take action. Ask, do you want to risk missing a house that's perfect for you because you're waiting for a silver sliver of savings that may or may not come? Yeah, that's a direct selling point or catchphrase. For some people, based on your behavioral profile, you'll say that and you get some wins, and then you also wonder why you may not get a call back because now you're salesy. And then another behavioral profile is I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be looked upon as pushy. Yet there's still a variety of ways you can still ask this one question and get the answer you want. And this is where I'm asking you guys, think about it. This is critical thinking right now. Before we move past this page, I need one person, maybe two, to ask me this question in a slightly different way. And there's no wrong answer. And we are on the time clock because we end at once. We got an hour left. So that means I need someone to take a chance. Remember my negotiating tactic? I said I'm not moving forward. And I don't want Nisha to speak up. I want someone I haven't heard from. Thank you, Nisha. Someone from the classroom. Someone from the classroom, please. Yeah, I may not get called back because, yeah, I am pushy. But I get people into action. And this is how I get agents to take action. If you thought you were coming today just to sit and hear someone and spend time, that you're sadly mistaken. If you do your research on me, like you should on your clients, you know I make people uncomfortable, but I get them to think. So I need someone to ask me this question. And granted, I recognize it may not be perfect, but take a chance, someone.
Okay. I would probably say it like, are you willing to miss out on a home that checks all of your boxes in order to save a few dollars?
All right. That's kind of the same way. Let me ask this question before reframing it and maybe give you a little context. What is the essence of this question? What is it you're actually really trying to get your client to? It says it right there at the top. I just gave it away. You're trying to determine their willingness. So by understanding and trying to determine their willingness, how could you ask this question in a slightly different way and get the same results you want to get? Thank you, Sharnita, for attempting. I appreciate that. And what you stated was not wrong. It's just actually still along the same lines. I was looking for something slightly different. If you want to take another chance at it, now that I've given it additional context, please do so we can move forward.
I need to think about it.
Sure. Come on, I can't believe you guys have never been posed with a client who is trying to make a decision on a house. Let me ask this question. Since outside of who's been 13 years, do you guys even have clients at this point in stage of your business? I need to know that.
Are you able to hear us in the classroom? There we.
Okay, you guys want me to put the question back up so you want to take a stab in the classroom?
No, are you able to hear us now?
I mean, I can hear you now. I wasn't able to hear you earlier.
Yeah, if you could put the question back up.
Sure, here it is. So thank you. What we're trying to do is determine the willingness. So this is one way of stating it. Do you want to risk missing a house that is perfect for you because you're waiting for a sliver of savings that may or may not be there? How would you, and that's actually relevant right now.
Are you willing to miss out on the home of your dreams because you don't see the equity in the property right now?
Thank you. Say that one more time, please. Thank you.
Are you willing to miss out on the home of your dreams because you don't see the equity in it right now?
Okay, so you think about, so the person who asked, who framed that question, thank you. The reason why you're doing that is what? Because of some of the things that were at the misconception at the very start. Fear of paying too much, high interest rates. They're not sure what's going to happen. Because we heard Nisha mention CNN and all the pundits saying everything's going to slow down. Guess what? This is how they get paid. Now you need to figure out how you're going to get paid, because this is your profession, like it's their profession. Their profession is to create fear, angst, anxiety, excitement to sell. Let's be clear, that's what it's for. This is a business. This is your business. So you stated, are you willing based off of equity? So now, by him stating equity, that can open up a couple lanes, because they may come back and say, I don't know what you mean. So can we role play this, please? By you stating that to me, I will be you and you be the client. And I ask you this question and you say, hey, I'm not sure about whatever. So my question is, hey, are you willing to risk this house? And this is how I would frame it. Hey, we've looked at all the markets. And from what I understand, this house checks off about 8 or 9 of all the important points in your checklist. While we understand it'll never be 100% perfect home, this will be your primary domicile where you're going to live. And while you may believe you may be paying too much for this house today, yet it may meet all the needs that you're looking for, which then become priceless in your enjoyment and livability of the home. Can you help me understand why we may or may not take action today?
I don't see the house having enough equity. I'm not comfortable with the amount of equity that's in the property right now.
Okay, so thank you. And again, remember, this is your primary domicile. Correct me if I'm wrong. According to my notes, you said you plan to live here 7 years or so, but you may go back. And you're fearing that the house may or may not have equity. Has anything changed since that last time?
No, I'm just worried that when I go to move in 7 years, there won't be enough proceeds for me to put down on the next house.
Okay, great. That's fair. Now, if I'm able to share with you certain market trends, now we don't have a crystal ball. We recognize that things go up and down. Yet historically, data points will show on any 5 to 10 year trend, there is a substantial amount of equity. Now, will it be the equity that you may be seeking? And that maybe that's something I need to know now. And the question really becomes too, which is more important, a dollar figure amount of equity in the future that may or may not be there, or the quality of enjoyment of all the things that you said this home actually provides based off of what you're looking for, which is, can you put a price on your quality of life and enjoyment in the home and also in the community?
Actually, I didn't really think about it that way, because if things work well, I may end up being in the house for 10 to 12 years rather than 7. So I never really thought of it that way.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, we don't have a crystal ball, but I can at least show you trend reports, not just nationally and within the city, but within your current community where you're buying over a 5 to 10 year run, there has been some form of appreciation. And usually is right about the rate of inflation, which is about 4 to 5% on annual. Okay. But again, and again, if there's a certain dollar amount that you may want to have at a move up, there are a couple of ways of doing that too. If you're concerned about equity appreciation, you can have a conversation with your lender to maybe making an extra payment or two, or maybe making payments bi-monthly, like your pay period, direct deposit, to actually have more money go to principal and less the interest at the upfront. So no matter how long you're there, you will maybe have that certain finite amount of equity that you may be looking for. Now, I can't give you that answer. That's a conversation, and you can kind of play around with that with your lender. He can give you some scenarios, but then again, once he gives it to you, it's all theory unless you apply it. And it's up to you to apply it. But I can at least give you a pathway or a resource to at least get you to accommodate a kind of a, how can you say, a mixing of the two. You living in a home that you don't see something today, but you know you'll be there for a period of time, yet you want a certain amount of equity, maybe to do certain things in the future. But what I will say in my years of experience is I have never had any clients with buyer remorse. And I will say this too. I've never asked a client, are you ready to write an offer? But I will present you with enough information for you to make an informed decision. And with that, with over 1,000+ transactions, I've never had a client complain. So how do we wish to proceed? I will get you some comps and we can double back in a day or so. What did you guys get out of that?
Well, off script, that's a good point where, somebody always has the option of paying down the principal on their own if they have extra cash at any point in time. So that's a good point to kind of keep in the back of your mind. That really, like it seems like common sense, but you don't really think about that as a suggestion.
You know what? I am glad you said that. This is why I like the interaction, because this is not going to be something in this course material. What he stated was common sense. And sometimes we don't put enough of our own common sense or our own thoughts and initiatives, and we're relying on someone else's. That is why it's so important for you to become the expert. Because that's why I said stop and think. What tools do you use to communicate your knowledge? Where can you get reference information from? I stated Kelly. HomeSnap, HomeSnap. That's through National Association of Realtors. You can download it in your app store in Google or Android or whatever you call it. The same with Kelly. You can download them. There are predictable analytic tools right now that you guys can utilize that already aggregates all of this data. So here it is. We say big companies and tech is disrupting our industry. How can we utilize that to enhance our business? Because believe me, for Lindsay and myself back in the day, it took us a long time to compile a CMA. Now you guys can do cloud CMAs. Now I still would, which actually is pretty, in my opinion, is usually about 5 to 7% off of what I probably would do. So for those of you, that's another way where you can even fact check your own in your own local MLS. Start doing CMAs on certain subject properties yourself first, and then do a cloud CMA and see what and how the artificial intelligence will come up with it. And that's a way for you to gain confidence without waiting on a mentor or someone else to give you something subjective. Utilize the resources that you have. Again, pulling market neighborhood reports and market neighborhood profiles. I used to use Wikipedia and Google stuff all day long and piece things together, read it, and then try to compile and synthesize it for my own clients. You can get a market snapshot in a neighborhood report because through Kelly, we utilize Nextdoor, those neighborhood listservs. And that can populate in 2 seconds, in a minute. The same with HomeSnap. These are all the things that are part of your walls of value. And while it's, like he said, it's common sense and it's readily available and free, not every 85% of people will either forget about it or never use it, even though I just stated it. Creating your best buy list. Now, a lot of this is outdated, like HUD exchanges and REOs and foreclosure lists. You can replace that with what? Probate lists. Connecting with divorce attorneys. You understand? How do you aggregate information and you make it best for your type of business? New home sales, builders promotions, know what's happening. Show of hands, and I'm not going to pause this any longer, but how many of you all do open houses and actually run and do a CMA and actually run all actives and under contract and sold within a quarter-mile radius, or if you're in the city, a 3-block radius or 4-block radius of the house? Do you all actually have that with you? Not to show the client, but do you all actually do that? That comes about being prepared. Because how many times you guys are at open houses or at events and people may say, hey, did you see the house around the corner? Or how much is the house down the block going for? They already have made a presumption that you're the expert. So the question is, will you be the expert? Because your title and position as a realtor, a real estate agent, you have already categorized yourself as an expert. Now the question becomes, will you live up to what you have? The difference here it is too. The barrier of entry of being just a real estate agent, because it's very low to get in our business. You guys already see that now. And then to be great up here is how much time and attention you focus you put in your craft. And it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. It really doesn't. And I want to say something, and I'll be PC about it. A lot of people that you may look up to in your market because it looks like they have a lot of social media and they're living their best life. Watch it in the summertime and then around the holiday time. They're living their best life. Oh, I'm working a deal from the beach because I got clients. That's smoke and mirrors. Let's be real. You know it when you see who's on top. Or maybe that one month when you do 3 or 4 deals and close because they all backed up. And now you're number 4 or number 2 in your market center as an individual agent. Come on. You see where I'm going with this? Yet we have this persona that there's so many people at the top, when in fact, you're just probably just 1 or 2 steps away from being there yourselves. It's how much time and attention are you going to put into your craft for you and your way of doing business, instead of watching others. I'm saying watch and take from others, but a lot of times we see the others and see that we can never compete, and we tell that story to ourselves. I can say that from experience because it's real. And break that, and that's my mission right now, is to break that narrative, because I see a lot of agents with tons of potential fall prey to that, because they're, as the bold laws say, don't judge your insides by someone else's outsides. You don't know what they got going on in their world. They're just faking it till they're making it. And I actually, that's the one thing I will say. If you promote certain things, like I've caught agents where they make posts on social media, walking with a bag and say, I got this bag. And I'll actually say, because I know what they have. I'm like, you got something to go in that bag? Do you plan to have something go in that bag? Because I know what you have right now. Yet to the public, they got it going on. So I'm okay. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's the game. They're playing the game. I'm saying if you're going to play the game, back the game up. And this is how you back the game up, by being an expert, putting your time in, no matter how long you've been in business. For most of y'all who say, I just got in business last December, just say you got in business in 21. Because I will tell you this, there are agents who got in business last year in 21 and only did 3 deals. And there are agents who got in business last year in 21 and did 35. The client doesn't know what you've done. And if you're worried about your time in business, the one way to negate that is your ability to be the expert, your knowledge. How do you have the knowledge? Do the homework. Know what it means. Know this information. How do you know this information? I want to see a show of hands. Find it for them. All these things. You can't find it for them. You can't create urgency. You can't do any of this stuff, right? Knowing what they need and what they want, knowing the best buys in the market. You can't find it for them. You can't create the best buy list. You can't understand and know what a deal is when it is a deal until what? You put time on task in your craft. So I'm going to ask, how many people have previewed property last week? How many homes did you preview? Especially those who are full-time. And let's go quickly about this too. This isn't a hard thing. Either you did or you didn't. 0, 1, 2, 20, 30. What's the number? Brian, you say 1. Thank you. He kicked us off. He's like at the cookout. Everyone's afraid to step up to get food. Now that Brian said 1, he's got his plate. I need people to come behind quickly and tell me, how many homes did you preview last week? 2. I heard 1. I heard 2. Can I get it some other numbers, please? Let's
3.
go quickly. 3. Okay.
0.
Well, I didn't hear that last person.
0.
0. Okay. I think you said 0. All right. Now, for those who are full-time, what prevented you from previewing homes? And here it is. Are the previews that you, okay, here's a better question. How many homes did you all, for those who show 1 home or 3 homes, or preview 1 or 3 homes, how many of you all showed homes last week to clients? And how many homes did you say? Huh?
I showed about probably 10 or 12 homes last week.
Okay, so when I asked how many homes did you preview, why didn't you say, you said 10 or 12? Ah,
I thought preview just meant by myself.
thank you. Thank you. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah, a preview, you should be previewing homes by yourself. But the one thing we undervalue what we do. If for those 10 or 12 homes you showed a client last week, obviously, hopefully your client decided on 1, but that means you have 9 or 10 other homes that may be options for other people. It's all in how our awareness to what we're doing. You guys get what I just said? I'll frame it another way. When you're showing homes for a client, you're also previewing for other clients you have or your future clients to come. Who has ever thought of it that way? So that's something to take away. So Brian, you said you previewed 1 home, but how many homes did you show last week?
With my one particular client, I showed a bunch of homes.
Okay, bunch is still vague to me. That's subjective.
About 7.
Okay. So you guys see where I'm going with this? I need for everyone to think who said they only did 1, 2, 3, 0. Now, when I ask the question, when you're on showings, that's also your previewing. So why did we get so upset? Oh, I showed them all these homes. They don't want to do anything. Yeah, as Lindsay mentioned, we have to, as long as we're a student of our business, for every showing, that's also a potential preview that we can add into our Rolodex. So when we meet with a client, I will ask this question. How many people, when they meet with a client at a consult, and they may ask you a question about a property that you maybe saw 2 months ago and thought it's probably has been sold, and it's either back on the market or on the market, and they ask you about it. And you say, yeah, I went in that house about a month or 2 ago. And you start telling them about it. Has that ever happened to any of you all?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Brian, So thank you, Brian, and the other person who said yes. I want to hear from each one of you, because this comes back to the listening and the paying attention to the body language of the client, because it's all about nuance. When you start to speak about that home and when you told them about it and your knowledge of the home, if you could remember, what was their first impression or thought that they either said or you presumed?
They thought that I provided them a value, knowing about the house that, they called. I'm specifically speaking about a Zillow lead, and people were calling me about this one particular home for like 2 weeks straight. I actually went to the house once and then had calls about it probably 2 or 3 subsequent times.
So you see where I'm saying, even the homes for everyone else on this call, and hopefully you guys can take away a tactical thing of having an awareness that any home that you're showing for one client can be a potential preview or opportunity for a future client. Because you just heard Brian state he noticed that they perceived him differently because he was able to speak to it. Who was the other? Thank you, Brian. Who was the other person who said, yes, that's happened? So the same question to you is, what was your presumption of the response of the client after you told them about the house?
I think just knowing that I was aware of what's going on in the local market, maybe some more of an expert. It was like, okay, so she does work this area, or it seemed like to me they were more comfortable with things that I was telling them about what's going on in the local area.
There you go. There you go. You guys, hopefully, if anything, I'm up here saying all this stuff, there's some takeaways that you guys can implement. There's small tweaks of what you're currently already doing, or having awareness to what you do, or how you, what's that Bow law? Change the way you look at things you look at change. So change the way you look at doing home previews for clients, and maybe you feel like, oh, it's a waste of your time. But I'm going to be clear. If you're a new agent, showing a house is not a waste of your time. This is how you gain knowledge. You can even start playing games with yourself. And back to the young lady in the classroom when she said that they looked upon her as the expert. I'll just speak, I'm here in Washington, D.C. You have typical row homes. I'm not sure where it may be. You guys may be in the suburbs. But think of that common style house. And you know the layout as soon as you walk in, right? Like as soon as you walk in, the bathroom's in the middle, and there's a small bedroom at the top of the steps, or the bathroom is at the top of the steps, depending on what type of house it is. Because sometimes houses can be prettied up on the outside, or maybe they may have an addition to the side. That's just like a package that's wrapped with different wrapping paper, but it's the same product on the inside, right? So if you have enough knowledge, you can play games, and this is how you can start to demonstrate your knowledge with your clients. Say, hey, this is a Cape Cod, and typically on Cape Cod, you usually have 1 to 2 bedrooms on the main level and a dormer on the top. Now, and then you get in there, and while the front looks like it is, and you can't see it because the property slopes to the back, or there's a lot of trees over top of the ridge line of the front of the house, and they got this big 60-foot addition with 2 stories. Now you think you're in a different home. You see where I'm going? Or think about homes that have been remodeled where you knew the original floor plan of the living room and dining room, but because it's now been remodeled, they've removed the walls. Your clients may not be able to visualize it, but this is where you as an expert say, hey, look, this is the same house that we saw last week. This is real. This is the same house we saw last week, yet with the same number of bedrooms and bath, yet they've now updated the property and they've extended the walls back, yet they still kept some definition. And my clients could not see that, yet they saw all the people at that open house and falling all over each other because it was totally updated. We literally left that house. And I said, let's go back to the house we saw last week. I checked to see if it was still on the market. and we went back in that house, then they were able to visualize all the potential things they can and cannot do with the home. Yet they thought it was a totally different home. And I was like, no, the house is 2 blocks away. Let me check. And now is their house that they lived in. They got a 203K loan to do some updates. And they lived in it for 6 years. And they honestly walked away with about $400,000 worth of equity when they moved to Portland. You guys see where I'm going with this? The more time on task that you're doing, and I'll be clear, I used to do 80 to 100 homes every week when I was full-time. And I was in the business full-time. Because again, I counted all the homes that I showed, plus I actually had 2 days scheduled to do previews. I did the Tuesday broker opens to go have lunch, and on Fridays, I preview what may have just come on. Because Tuesdays, while I did broker opens, I also looked to see, that's also on Mondays when price reductions happen. So while I'm out going to grab a lunch from one property to another, like you do at Costco's, I also pay attention to where price reductions are and schedule to go in those homes as well. That is how you get your time on task. If you're in 80 properties a week, and I'll cut it down, I challenge you guys to go into 40 properties a week in this next month of June. And you come back and let me know if your knowledge base has not gotten any better. I know that for a fact because that's how I train agents who worked on my team. And that's how I coach agents that are individuals that coach with me, and the rainmakers or team leaders to coach their agents, their buyer agents on teams. If they're new in the business and they don't have a deal or a consult, they need to be in properties. And take a neighborhood, go through that neighborhood, go deep, and then go choose another neighborhood the next week. You don't keep crisscrossing all over town. You'll never learn. But get out the car, walk the communities. There's a different view too from walking and driving through. These are the small, subtle things where we are right now and facilitate a decision that make all the difference. And this, which is features versus benefits. Features are things that can change, like what we just talked about, renovations. Benefits are things that are less likely to be able to change. Quaint, quiet, cozy, spacious. So how many people, and this is what happens usually with a lot of new agents and some old agents, your client tells you they want 3 beds, 2 baths, and they see these houses. And then you go take them to the house. And then they say, well, I like the house, but I don't like the neighborhood. But they did the consult and it all focused on their, and they said, I did the needs wants analysis and I got how many beds they want and all that. Yet the client's not biting. They're not acting. You just covered a feature, something that can or cannot change. When in fact, if they say, man, I really wish I had this house over there, or I really like the house, but it's an industrial site right behind it. If you did the preview, and you could do virtual previews. I don't know if you guys noticed, but click on the grid next to the picture when you're looking at these homes on the MLS. If you click the grid and expand, zoom in or zoom out, and then switch it from grid to street view, you could actually see the neighborhood from an aerial view. How many people knew you could do that right there in your listing? You didn't have to go out to MapQuest. Did any of you all know you could do that?
Yeah, and I do it on HomeSnap.
Yeah, you can do it in Homes, and you can do it in HomeSnap. And well, HomeSnap is actually run by Realtor.com, which means it's feeding off of the MLS. So when you're in your own MLS, right next to the picture, there's usually a grid. Click the grid next time for those who've never done it, and zoom in or zoom out, and then switch it from grid to street view. You will see the industrial site or the railroad tracks or the car barn right behind the property. Or when the property has a nice tight picture shot and you want to know what's to the left or right, do a Google Street View and you'll see apartments all around you. And guess what? While you got the 3 beds, 2 baths, this is where it's back to being an expert and helping your client to distill and aggregate all the information they have. Because if you're not doing it, guess what? And that's where we get challenged or sometimes threatened is because our agents, I mean, our clients are doing it. Because guess what? They're motivated. So a lot of times they've already done a whole bunch of work. And then we say, oh, I like them because they knew what they want. But then we get upset when the client doesn't know what they want. It's our job as the professional to help them aggregate all the information that's coming to them from news media outlets, blogs, other realtors. Their cousin was in a different state who was a realtor. Their best friend bought a house last week, and their mom and dad told them a narrative of what they are still hanging on to. That's why when people say buyers are liars, buyers don't know what they want, they're confused. No, it is our job. And I'm going to be clear. And it's more about the benefits than the features. Again, the benefits are things that cannot change. All this stuff goes away. And even though we have these things here, all this stuff goes away. And I want to come back to this is if you're able to actually ask at the consult, the poignant questions, the hard questions to get your clients to think. Because here it is, everyone. We may say as realtors, and this goes back to what other realtors may say, and we say it to our friends at parties. Think about it. Oh man, I did an open house and I had all these nosy neighbors come in. And then we wonder when the neighbor walks in the house and their head is down and they're a little sheepish and say, hey, don't mind me, I'm just a nosy neighbor. Who told them they were the nosy neighbor? You see where I'm going with this? Has that ever, if you have never had that happen, that means you're not doing enough activity. Because everything I'm just stating actually has happened. Who's actually had someone say, don't mind me, I'm a nosy neighbor, or I'm just a neighbor, or I'm just a tire kicker? Where do they get these concepts from? This goes back to what was at the very start. We create our own challenges when we sit at the bar and commiserate and complain about, oh man, my day was so hard. I took these clients out. I showed them 5 properties and that was just today. I showed them 8 like last week and they still haven't made a decision. They don't know what they want. They can't even compete because they wanted something. They got a champagne taste on a beer budget. We're saying this out in public or at a cookout. We're always on stage.
Martin, I think your point about the Google Street View and aerial view was a brilliant point because, we're always looking to save time and be efficient with our time. And, if you have a client that's picked out, say 4 or 5 properties and you show them the street view and the aerial view every time, you could possibly weed out 1 or 2 and be more efficient. So I think that was a brilliant point.
Yeah. And here it is. And this is a little extra, but I usually cover this when I actually teach just facilitate the decision. I could teach where we are. I could teach and spend 2 hours on this. I'm not gonna lie. Back to features versus benefits. If you just take that one line, everything can fall into place. At least in my mind, it does. A feature are things that can change. You've been in a house and someone walks in, I don't like the paint color. Again, that's something that can be changed. And we have objection handlers for that. But guess what? We can't change if there are power lines overhead. We can't change if there's schools around the corner or if the house that they love faces a school or on a major bus route. That's a reason why usually avenues and, I don't know if you guys know this or not, at least in the district, alphabet streets garner more money than numerical streets because most numerical streets in the district are north and southbound freeways. Most of your avenues are crosstown thoroughfares. And usually that same house, people may wonder, well, why is it so much less from the house around the corner? It's the benefit. Because that same house around the corner will get maybe 25,000 more because it's around the corner, up the block, and it may have less noise and you don't have traffic. most numerical streets, and again, I don't know because you guys are all, I'm just speaking in the district, are north and southbound thoroughfares. And that's why usually your alphabet streets, because the district is laid out very simple. First, it's alphabet, then first syllable alphabet, second syllable alphabet, third syllable alphabet, and then you go into the alphabetical florals, and then you're into Maryland. That's how the district is in Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, Southeast. If you didn't know that, just so we're clear. Most of your avenues go at an angle or north and south, never really going straight across. There's a difference between a street and a road. You see where I'm going with this? But the more knowledge you have of your micro market, your hyper local market, meaning your community, the subdivision, or the zip code that you will predominantly work in or lay your claim in. I'm not saying creating a marketing plan and sending out mailers. That's spending money. Everything I'm speaking about is your time on craft and getting a return on your time. These are things you can do today without spending a lot of money. It is just your time. But back to those points. If you're in a consult, and this is what I tell clients, after I do my brief intro, I'm going to say, look, right now with all the technology, you can Google, and I'm sure you probably have already Googled if you haven't, 3 beds, 2 baths, and that's what most people may say. I want to know more than just the 3 beds, 2 baths. How will you live in your community? Do not tell me the name of a neighborhood, because remember at the very beginning, it said listen in all caps. There's something called coactive listening. And you guys can Google coactive listening. There are 3 levels of active listening, and I'm tying it all into to facilitate the decision. Level 1 is we're hearing what someone's saying and we're ready to say something while they're telling us something. So we miss the small nuances, the inflection, the drop in their voice. We miss the presumptive, what they may or not have said. Coactive listening 2 is you're listening and able to repeat back or synthesize what you interpreted they said. Coactive level listening 3, that's much more on a professional level. You think of entertainers and speakers, and they are sensing the energy from the room. And that's why they say, can I get a clap over here? Let's give me a little something over here. I did it here. You guys were speaking up and I didn't hear from the classroom. Having an awareness of where you are. Reading of the body language. That's why doing Zooms is so hard, because we don't see people's body language. 70% of communication is nonverbal. And tell me this, if we're supposed to be all about relationships, why do we make the common mistake, and I did it too in the beginning, that everything the client tells us at the consult is the truth and it's the Bible? Why? When in fact, 2 weeks later, they're telling us everything. And they're telling us things that we should have known at the consult, because we may have missed some opportunities. The reason why it is because we have not built a rapport. We have not utilized forward, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams to find some sense of commonality, some sense of the ability to have empathy for them. So why should I share everything to you? Yet, in actuality, they should. You know why? Because I'm going to dispel the reason why all other agents, because they don't take the time, and they call buyers are liars or buyers are confused. You tell me, show of hands real quick, how many of you all own a home currently? You own your primary home, not an investment property, but you own your primary home.
I do.
Okay, I guess one person. So if no one else owns their own home, how can you have empathy for a person who's a first-time buyer? Because the person who said they do you not give some analogies of when maybe you went through the same process with your first-time buyers?
I do. And I feel like that makes me empathize more with my first time home buyers, especially the ones who like waited probably 40 or 50 years before they purchased their first home. And like when we were talking about the features and benefits, I actually had a client who just closed on a home last week, or went under contract for a home last week, who we spent probably a month looking for a home, and it ended up being that what she really wanted was um, a larger backyard space where she didn't have to do maintenance to it. So she ended up purchasing a new construction home where they handle the lawn care through the HOA. And it gave her like that quiet, cozy, like spacious backyard without having to be the one to maintain it, which all the other homes, even though they checked off a lot of boxes, they didn't have that feature. But she never said that feature was what she was looking for. She would just go in and be like, this isn't it. I can't explain it. So we had to dive deeper and deeper before we realized like the inside is what you want, but the outside space, those weren't what were checking the boxes.
Thank you. You just proved what I'm going to role play. And so hopefully everyone heard it, or this is being recorded. You go back and listen to it and share it with your friends too. Because you just confirmed what I'm about to state. And this is another application item that you guys can implement tomorrow. Like I said, when you're meeting with a person, you go through a little bit of your credentialing, and you probably have gotten them. You should be getting them to fill out a pre-buyer questionnaire or seller questionnaire. Those have value. You can understand your behavioral profile of your client before you even meet with them. I'm certified in DISC, DISC, for behavioral profile. I'm certified in AVA and a few other behavioral assessments. But I got certified in DISC well before I became a coach. Because guess what? For all those consults, and remember I said facilitate a decision is the most important chapter, in my opinion, because we facilitate a decision in every walk of life, even in your own household, if you're going to say yes or no to your kids or your spouse or your significant other. You know, you're facilitating a decision and making a decision that may have an impact. So again, I asked that reason why I asked if you've ever owned a home. If you change the way you look at things you look at change. Right now, the decision to purchase a home is a person's single most important decision in their life that is involving an outside person. There may be two other decisions, but usually that's very personal. The decision to get married or create a partnership and the ability to grow a family. We're not privy to that. So if you look at it this way, next time you do a consult and you notice they're a little hesitant, and like you said, she said she couldn't put her finger on it, you're a party to someone's single most important decision outside of their family dynamic. So is this going to be a paycheck for you? Or are you about to forge and make an impact on someone's life? It's one of the two. And there's no harm, there's no judgment there. Because guess what? We have tons of people who it could be their business model. It's a numbers game for them, or it's about impact. You understand? So what I normally would do, and I know we're pressed on time and I have a video and I saw someone put their bag on, so hopefully they might be getting ready to get ready, and I got to respect your time. But please stay for this video if you can, if we go over. But I want to say, what I normally do is say, hey, I know you've seen 3 bids, 2 baths. You can always see that online and you have great things there. I want you to tell me, how will you enjoy your community and your home? Let's start with a Friday evening. Are you going, because you have to give them prompts. Are you socializing in your home and you need a large backyard or a large living interior space to entertain? Do you like to go to frequent restaurants or activities in your community that you don't want to drive to? Describe your community to me. how would you utilize the community where you live? Because most people during the work week, well, before the pandemic, were not in their home. So it's, you got to accentuate and create unique experiences that are priceless for when they're there, which is usually the weekend. Tell me about your Saturday. Do you need natural light? Do you like to draw? Do you like to write? Would you like to have your southern exposure in your bedroom or in your reading area? Sometimes people don't think about these things. You got to help prompt them to it. Like she said, the lady couldn't put her finger on it. Do you need a large backyard or a postcard backyard? Do you like to cut grass or not cut grass? If you like to exercise, do you want to have walking paths or a gym nearby? They will start opening up. Tell me about your Saturday afternoon. How will you utilize the home or your neighborhood on Saturday? All right, talk to me about your Sunday. Are you the person who gets ready and do chores, or is it wind down Sunday to get ready for the work week? And say, hey, can you just describe how you will live without saying the name of the community? Because I'm going back to coactive listening. I've seen it happen. The moment they say Petworth, Brightwood, Severna Park, or wherever a neighborhood is, that agent is going through a Rolodex of all the homes that they went in. And then they may miss, I like a large backyard. Even though I've never had a backyard, I would like the opportunity to take up gardening. But they miss that, even though the person said it, because the person named a couple neighborhoods. And now, because we do tons of property previews, we're now not listening. We're at coactive level listening one, because now you're like, oh, I know the house. It just came on the market in Brightwood. It's in the price point. It has 3 beds, 2 baths. Oh, I know the house. It's a Rambler. They said they want a Rambler, and it's over in Brightwood or wherever. You guys see where I'm going with this? But they're not going to open up to you. So here's again a way to help control that situation. Like I said, you can control the tempo at the console. It's all in how you reframe some of the questions. And I'm going to be clear, a lot of our scripts and questions are written with what is called NLP, embedded commands for people to take action to get in their subconscious. Yet, if you don't know how to use them, you may say them incorrectly, because if you've ever taken bold, what are you supposed to do when you get to a embedded command? You're supposed to slightly pause and then state the embedded command with an upswing and then pause again. Yeah, but if we just run through it, it sounds weird and it does not have the same effect. It's called NLP, neuro linguistic patterning. That is what it is. You're stating things to get into their subconscious. It's causing you to have them to have critical thinking. And these are things you can start to do without having to take a whole bunch of classes. All I would say is ask a few open-ended questions and have them expound, and then just listen and listen to what they say. And then how can you ask additional questions in that same lane? You can even say, tell me more. And when this happens, what will that do for you? Now, what is a logical term where someone can do something? And then you can say, and how will that benefit you when you're able to do that? I'm staying in the same lane, but it's the choice of the questions I ask. There's powers in the questions, and there are levels of questions. A why question is that defensive question. A what is a logical question. How is a logical operational question. Oh no, how goes into feelings. Sorry, how is feelings. If anything I'm saying sounds brand new, you have tons of resources you can cover through John Maxwell, the 5 levels of questions. You can Google all this stuff. There are tons of infographics. Any questions? I want to share a video. With you all to kind of summarize all that time on task and trust in the process. That's what we're talking about here. Any questions so far before we go forward? All right. I want to, was someone about to say something?
No, I was just saying, no, I didn't have a question.
All right, I want to share this video. I'm a big sports person. This video is old. Can you guys see the video? Show a hand. Someone put their hand up.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, I'm about to play it.
Make sure you live in the moment
Can you all hear it?
and work your butt
Yes.
off every single day. And I hope I inspire people all around the world to just be themselves, be humble, and be grateful for all the blessings in your life. And I'm truly honored to be your MVP this year. Thank you very much.
Several years ago, I had the great honor of working the first ever Kobe Bryant Nike Skills Academy. Nike invited the top 20 high school shooting guards and the top 10 college shooting guards in the country to this camp with Kobe. And it's kind of funny now that I look back on it, how many of those players are now household names in the NBA. However, at that time, the least recognized player there was Stephen Curry. But I knew immediately that he was the most impressive, and that thinking long term, he was going to be a future NBA superstar. And here's how I knew that. It was all because of his work habits. Now, those skills academies, we would have 2 workouts a day for 3 straight days. 30 minutes before every single workout, most players were still in their flip-flops and had on their headphones, and Stephen Curry had already started doing some form shooting. He had already started taking game shots, game spots, and game speed. By the time the workout officially started, he had probably already made 100, 150 shots and was in a full sweat. When the workout actually started, he was meticulous with everything that he did. He made sure that he had perfect footwork. He made sure that he had perfect shooting form. If he did anything and it wasn't perfect, he did it over again. And he didn't need a coach to tell him, he just did it. And then probably the most impressive thing that he did was as soon as every workout was over, he would not leave the court until he swished 5 free throws in a row. Do you know how hard that is? But that's the level of excellence that he holds himself to. And the moral of that story is that success is not an accident. Success is actually a choice. And Stephen Curry is one of the best shooters on the planet today because he has made the choice to create great habits. And my question to you is, are the habits that you have today on par with the dreams that you have for tomorrow? That's something that you need to ask yourself every single day. Because whatever you do on a regular basis today will determine where you will be tomorrow.
Curry fires for 3. Just impossible to stop. Curry, unbelievable. Curry launches a 3. Offensive rebound, Curry again. And Curry hits a 3.
We've just never seen somebody who can take threes off the dribble at this kind of volume. You know, I've said it for years. He's a glitch. I mean, he just doesn't exist, and he makes you change everything you do on defense.
Curry splits the defense behind the back. Fires a 3. Oh, he puts it in. 3 for 3. He turned. He knew it was in. He turned and ran back before the ball ever got there.
When Curry gets hot, there's just nothing like it. I've been in 2 arenas now where it happened. I can't even describe it.
I don't even know how to describe what I watched tonight. I have never seen a player with this skill set.
He'll tee up the 3 for the record. He got it! All-time NBA record, 273 made three-point shots for the marksman, Stephen Curry.
And the moral of that story is that success is not an accident. Success is actually a choice. And Stephen Curry is one of the best shooters on the planet today because he has made the choice to create great habits. And my question to you is, are the habits that you have today on par with the dreams that you have for tomorrow?
Long rebound, Steph, no timeout with 6 and 5. Curry for the lead. Curry electrifying this crowd.
All right. I know we're 1 minute over. I put my contact information in the chat there. Thank you for staying on a little longer. If anyone have any thoughts of what I just shared in that video and understand it's the time on task over time. And that video was from 2014. Actually, they redid it when he won it, the MVP in 15. And if anyone understands it, he just won MVP for the Western Conference Championship. And he's still, before his games, each game, he goes out on the court and shoots so many free throws. He swishes them in so many half court, so many 3-point shots, all before every game. Does anyone even know that? And that's a person who's at the top of his craft, but he still puts that time in. And that's what I'm trying to say for you guys. It's not time on task, it's time over time. Thank you all. If you don't have any other questions, I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you all today and share what I'm actually most passionate about and love to teach and facilitate at any time I have the opportunity.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. This was
Thank you all.
great.
Thank you.